We're going to use the reading strategy notice and note today to read this story. And the one part of the notice and note strategy that we're going to focus on is the what does the author assume I know strategy. So whenever we come to something that's a little confusing, we're going to mark it. Now I'm going to model this. You might be confused by more things than I am. You might be confused by fewer things than I am. But I want you to see how I do this so that you can understand why the strategy is helpful. Okay, so we're going to read The Birds of Hubbard Brook, Part 1, about the featured scientist Richard Holmes from the Hubbard Brook Experimental Forest. Okay, here's the research background. The Hubbard Brook Experimental Forest is an area where scientists have collected ecological data for many years. So right away, there's a vocabulary word. I'm going to highlight that. I'm going to be like, ecological data. Okay, so I'll make a little note to myself that I want to pay attention to maybe what that means. It's located in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Data collected in this forest helps uncover environmental trends over long periods of time, such as changes in air temperature, precipitation, forest growth, and animal populations. It's important to collect data on ecosystems over time because these patterns could be missed with shorter observation periods or short-term experiments. So now what I think to myself is, oh, that's what ecological data is. It's actually explained in this document. Ecological data is changes in air temperature, precipitation, forest growth, and animal populations. It's all right there. I could also make a little comment here. Oops. Could highlight this, make a little comment like, this is the ecological data. And then I remind myself, okay, that's what they mean by ecological data. Each spring, Hubbard Brook comes alive with the arrival of migratory birds. Okay, so again, the author is assuming I know what migratory means. I'm going to make a note there. Migratory. Well, it sounds like migration. Those are the birds that migrate. Many come from the tropics to take advantage of abundant insects and the long summer days of northern areas. Abundant is another word that they're going to assume that I know. Abundant in this context means a lot. So I'm making myself a little note over here. Many come from the tropics to take advantage of abundant insects and the long summer days of northern areas. In the spring, avian ecologists, what's that? Or scientists who study the ecology of birds. Oh, that's what that is. It's explained right there. Also become active in the forest at Hubbard Brook. They have been keeping records on the birds that live in the experimental forest for over 50 years. These data are important because they represent one of the longest bird studies ever conducted. Richard is an avian ecologist, there's that word again, but I know what it means now because of the last paragraph, who began this study early in his career as a scientist. He was interested in how bird populations respond to long-term environmental changes at Hubbard Brook. Every summer since 1969, Richard takes his team of trained scientists, students, and technicians into the field to identify which species are present. I'm going to break for just a minute here because this little bird, a black-throated blue warbler, I actually saw one in Thatcher Woods last spring. Yeah, it was pretty exciting. Okay, I couldn't believe I saw it. Actually, I was so shocked I actually had to have a naturalist confirm it. Okay, sorry. All right, Richard's team monitors populations of over 30 different bird species. They count the number of birds that are in the forest each year and study their activities during the breeding season. The researchers wake up every morning before the sun rises and travel to the far reaches of the forest. They listen for, look for, identify, and count all the birds they find. The team has been trained to be able to identify the birds by sight, but also by their call. Team members are even able to identify how far away a bird is by hearing its call. The study area is located away from any roads or other disturbed areas. To measure the abundance, or number of birds, found in the 10-hectare study area, the researchers use what is called the spot mapping method. There's another word there, hectare. Okay, 10 hectare. So that might be something that I have to look up. You can actually do that in Google. You know that, right? You can highlight it and somewhere define hectare. Right there. A metric unit of square measure equal to 100 acres. Wow, it's a big area. Google's awesome. Okay. The researchers used what's called the spot mapping method. They used plastic flags on trees 50 meters apart throughout the study area to create a 50 by 50 meter grid. The grid allows them to map where birds are found in this area and, when possible, where they locate their nests. Using the grid, the researchers systematically walk through the plot several days each week from early May until July, recording the presence and activities of every bird they find. They also note the locations of nearby birds singing at the same time. These records are combined on a map to figure out a bird's territory or activity center. At the end of the breeding season, there's another thing. I mean, I'm sure most of you know what breeding season is, but right, the breeding season is the time when birds are mating and having babies. So the author is again assuming you know that, and that's fine. It might be an issue of confusion too, so you could mark that. Okay, sorry. At the end of the breeding season, they count up the number of territories to get an estimate of the number of birds on the study area. This information, when paired with observations on the presence and activities of mates, locations of nests, and other evidence of breeding activity, provide an accurate estimate for bird abundance. Finally, some species under close study, like American redstart and black-throated blue warbler, were captured and given unique combinations of colored bands, which makes it easier to track individuals. By looking at bird abundance data across many years, Richard and his colleagues can identify trends that reveal how avian populations change over time. The author assumes that by now, you know what avian means. Also, those of you who take Spanish, maybe French too, but Spanish for sure, that might look familiar to you, what this means, right? Avian means birds, and think about what the Spanish word for bird is. Okay, that is how to use the notice and note strategy. What does the author assume I know for this article?